a sign. Will everything be alright? I need a sign, cause I don't wanna waste my time. Sometimes I don't wanna wake up, I feel tired in my bed, wanna lay up. Watch TV instead, about fake love. Let the drama unfold with my brain numb. Yeah, I'm still digesting everything that's going on, second guessing if this world is a place worth saving. I feel lost in this world as of lately. Give me a sign, will everything be alright? I need a sign, cause I don't wanna waste my time. I wish I knew if all of my dreams would come true. I wanna be free, I gotta find a way to believe. All I know is that if I give up then it's over, but if I keep going every day's a bit closer. Highs and the lows, feels like a roller coaster, it's never over. I gotta find a way to get inspired in this life. Stop looking out and start looking inside. Find what I love and take a little pride. Anything is better than complaining about life. I don't need help, I could do it by myself. No pain, no gain, I will go through hell. Do what it takes, I will break out of my shell. I'm never coming back, once I'm gone I'm out. Yeah, got me like ooh, watch me on the screen, you gon' see me making moves. You gon' see me scheme like I got something to prove. Working like a fiend, yeah I do just what I do. Got a purpose, got a view, turn my vision into truth. My dreams are becoming lucid. The more I work improving, the more I fight, keep moving. I am not losing, pride keeps me refueling. I will be better real soon, yeah. Real soon, yeah. Give me a sign, will everything be alright? I need a sign, cause I don't wanna waste my time. I wish I knew if all of my dreams would come true. I wanna be free, I gotta find a way to believe. You gotta believe, I will make it happen one day. You gon' see my face and my name. Came to this place to be great. Okay, I will make it happen one day. You gon' see my face and my name. Came to this place to be great. Okay. yeah.
Hello and welcome to my Mind Over Your Matter. My name is Rick, and it's Friday night. Sorry I'm late. Had dinner and stuff, and I got lazy, and I was supposed to go to the movies, but I ended up changing it for tomorrow. I'm going to the movies tomorrow instead of today. Just because I got so lazy. You know, when you eat a good meal and you just get tired after you just ate this delicious meal and you just like don't want to do shit. That's where I was at. To force myself to get on here, but I'm here, and let's get the show started. Right, I got some news from throughout today that I would like to review with you guys together, and plus there's going to be some add-ons at the end. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that are lined up, but there may be 3 more at the end. So we're going to be here for a good time. It looks like it's going to be a 2-hour show. So get your snacks, get your drinks, make sure you get your water, because we're going to be drinking a lot of water in this show today. So we got to drink a lot of water. Let's start off right now. Woo! Gotta love it. Gotta love water. Can't live without it. That's for sure. Say what's up, Albie, Terry. What's going on? How you doing, man? And let's get to the news. Give me 1 second to set it up. Actually, you know what? Let's change the setup. Let's go with the setup here, and bring in the news.
All right, you've been watching a CBS News special report. Again, to recap the Supreme Court ruling just moments ago on the issue of birthright citizenship. Well, not exactly. So let's bring back CBS News contributor Rebecca Royfee to talk about exactly what this means. So, Rebecca, we sort of teased it in the way that the press has been talking about it. And I think if you're a layperson, if you're watching this at home and you hear that the Supreme Court issued a ruling on birthright citizenship, you're going to go, wait a tick. I wonder what that means for people who are naturalized Americans, or perhaps the people who are the child of immigrants, as I am. But what does this injunction really uphold?
So what the Supreme Court said is not that birthright citizenship is constitutional. That was not the holding today. Very clearly, they did not address that substantive question. Instead, what they did do was hold that when one federal district court hears a case challenging the executive order, it cannot issue an injunction, something that stops the executive order from going into effect across the nation. It just doesn't have the power to do that. So that the executive order now cannot be enforced in those states that have where there are challenges pending, but it could at least theoretically be enforced in other states that have not considered this question. And so what really was decided was something about the power of federal district courts inside states to make decisions that affect the entire nation. And the Supreme Court said the judiciary just does not have that power. It hasn't been given that power by Congress, so it just can't do that.
And so is there, and Jan Crawford, who we're going to get on in just a moment, was talking about her feeling that that you're not going to see much movement in the way of people, for example, getting deported. But could that happen? And I want to make sure that I understand Jan's argument correctly. But her sense seems to be, as somebody who's not a lawyer, which is that there's going to be filings immediately in the wake of this decision from the Supreme Court, and we're not going to see a lot of movement for the things that perhaps people might be worried about, versus the perhaps the celebration that may be coming out of the White House?
Well, I mean, I think she's probably right that, you're not going to see the, massive deportation of people who have birthright citizenship. But, I think this is an administration that has very much tried to do this, which is work around the law, like rather than respect the law, work around the law and get through the law and do things, that it might, that it might know it will ultimately be blocked, but do it, because there's some kind of impact that it might have. And maybe the impact is only kind of a scare tactic, but that in and of itself is significant. What this decision really did was give power to the executive. It made it so that the executive has more power than it did before. And, I think that has been traditionally something, not about the Trump administration, but conservative legal actors have been very interested in increasing the power of the executive. And that's what happened today. And so I think it remains to be seen, how much they will really be able to exploit that power at this point, but it's a power that they now have going forward. And I think, that it will affect administrations, again, not necessarily just this one, not necessarily just Republican ones, but, multiple administrations, because it just hands more power to the executive relative to the courts.
All right, so Jan Crawford is actually joining us now to talk more about this. So Rebecca, just stand by while we bring in Jan into the discussion. Our CBS News chief legal correspondent, Jan Crawford, who's joining me now. So Jan, explain it to me like somebody who took poli-sci because he couldn't get into law school. What does this ruling really mean? And I'm talking about me.
First of all, Vlad, I do not believe that you couldn't. That just shows your good judgment that you didn't go to law school. I do not believe that you could not get it. I think what this means, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear some of the conversation you had earlier, but this is really putting the brakes on one federal judge being able to kind of stymie policy from the executive branch across the country indefinitely. I mean, Justice Kagan in 2022 made that exact point, that it can't be right that one federal judge can just come in and block policy, which is what happened, say, in the Biden administration when conservative judges in Texas, where Republicans were filing lawsuits, entered nationwide injunctions, interfering and blocking some of his efforts on immigration, his efforts to forgive student loan, debt relief programs, COVID vaccines. So he was targeted with a number of nationwide injunctions himself, and in fact urged the Supreme Court during his presidency to please rein these things in. It's become increasingly, I completely agree, you see presidents asserting more power because why? There's a dysfunctional Congress. And so, when you have vacuums with immigration or other issues that presidents believe need to be addressed and Congress isn't doing anything.
Hey, Tyson, what's up?
Use of executive orders. Now,
Tyson decided to go to the movies tomorrow.
To the next extreme,
not tonight. I got lazy after I ate.
50 or more of these nationwide injunctions.
But if you do go to the movies,
what this means is the court is saying this is not how the system works. There is a way to get broad injunctions that will essentially cover the
Terry,
country,
what did you do last night, Terry?
Doing it the right way. And it can't just be a system where every case is, potentially suitable. For
tomorrow is going to be wrestling Night of Champions, but it's going to be at 11 o'clock in the morning. So if you want to watch with me, I'll put out the link on my Discord, and I'll put it out on Tyson's Discord too if you want to watch.
If you are in Texas, and let's say you are one of these individuals,
Tyson, you're funny,
who is potentially affected
later on.
by this ruling, could that mean that tomorrow you could be deported?
We got some breaking news coming up next. So right after this, we're going to catch some breaking news coming out of
and obviously
New Orleans.
The court is narrowing this injunction. It's still going to remain in place for the 22 states, the multiple organizations with thousands of members, the individual plaintiffs. That injunction will still be in place. You can't do anything against them. But moreover, there's a 30-day pause in this executive order. So there's nothing that would happen in the next 30 days. The Solicitor General made that very clear in the court. The justices were asking basically, Vlad, your point, like practically what's going to happen. So in that period where nothing's going to happen, this is all on pause, the people will file lawsuits now seeking class action certification. So the justices at argument, and that was one of their big concerns, was agreeing that courts could move quickly to basically block this, indefinitely, but just doing it the right way, doing it the right process. And obviously the court today was in multiple opinions by the majority, concurrences as well, suggested that this this is a case where it may have very little practical impact in the birthright citizenship case. I expect we will never see that executive order implemented.
So
CBS is such a full of shit. You know that?
To this discussion.
That's another group that I can't stand.
And sort of
but I can deal with CBS more than I can with CNN and MSNBC.
The makeup of how the court ruled. So what were?
But I can't stand some of these channels. They're just I have to listen to it because I need to get both sides. But
yeah, so I think what we saw from Justice Sonia Sotomayor and from Justice Jackson was a kind of preview of the ultimate question. So again, to be very clear, the court did not decide about the constitutionality of birthright citizenship, but in the dissents, what you saw was an argument that, okay, yes, there is a proper process, but there are certain cases.
They're gonna just keep talking blah 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 blah. Let's go to more important news because there is breaking news coming out of New Orleans. It seems like they caught one of the inmates. They caught one of the inmates that had escaped like 3 weeks ago. So let's go over here and check it out.
Captured this afternoon, according to the U.S. Marshal's Office. Antoine Massey, who has been known for making social media posts as he's been on the run. He was one of the 10 inmates who escaped from the Orleans Justice Center several weeks ago now. He and Derek Groves were the only two remaining still on the run. But this afternoon, we have learned at WWL Louisiana that Antoine Massey has been recaptured. We just got off the phone moments ago with the U.S. Marshal's Office.
I did feel him when he was talking there.
Here at WWL Louisiana, that he is, in fact, back in custody, that he was taken back into custody in the Holly Grove neighborhood. And investigative reporter Mike Pearlstein is joining me on the set this afternoon.
Someone must have read it out on him.
Tell me what else you know. This happened in Holly Grove, as I mentioned?
Right, in the 9400 block of Strolitz, not far from the Costco on the way to Metairie Road. This was all within the past hour, so this is very fresh news and information. Antoine Massey was found inside of a residence. He was alone. According to Brian Fair of the U.S. Marshal Service, he was captured without incident. In fact, he gave himself up once surrounded by law enforcement. This actually came from a Crime Stoppers tip, Katie. So we know that a $50,000 reward had been offered for some weeks now. They had been waiting on tips, in fact, pursuing some of them unsuccessfully until today. This tip panned out. Somebody will be collecting $50,000. It came through Crime Stoppers. Other agencies involved, the U.S. Marshals were kind of leading the search, but instrumental and active residents were representatives of the New Orleans Police Department, Louisiana State Police, U.S. Marshals, of course, along with JPSO, not far from the Jefferson Parish border.
That's right on the line.
They assisted.
He was living his best life until now.
No chances or risks with these
bunk bed.
This particular escaped inmate
being back to his daddy.
Potentially armed, potentially dangerous, but it ended peacefully. He's now back in custody. Obviously, he'll be facing a charge of escape in addition to the previous charges for which he was being held at the Orleans Justice Center of domestic violence that included rape.
Yes, absolutely. Now, this area that we were looking at on your screen, this is a map where that house is, where Antoine Massey, one of the Orleans Justice Center escapees, was taken back into custody. If you're just joining us, that happened just a few moments ago. This area is really not too far from Xavier University's campus, which may be a bit unnerving for some parents out there who may be watching this, to know that Antoine Massey was hiding out in a house right there, not that far from the Costco, where a lot of people frequent, hundreds, thousands of people go through that Costco every day. And apparently Antoine Massey did not get far when they escaped from the Orleans Justice Center, and remember, all 10 of them.
It was kind of assumed in the case of Antoine Massey in particular that he may not have gone far. We saw that previously he posted
videos
a
on
video
TikTok,
of himself on social media.
Crazy.
That was identified as a house near the fairgrounds, which was promptly descended upon by the law enforcement agencies. he had not been there. So assume that whenever he videotaped that, it was sometime earlier before he posted it. But that gave them an idea that he probably had not fled across state lines or anything further. What is interesting, crazy. We've seen in many of these other escapees, accomplices arrested, booked with accessory to the escape. Right now, no such other people known to be involved in helping him, assisting him. Nobody was at that house in that Holly Grove area when they descended upon it to make that arrest. He gave himself up peacefully. Now, of course, we'll see once they debrief Antoine Massey if he provides any additional information. He was considered, Katie, one of the masterminds.
Yes, I mean, we learned that. Escape. We learned that, yes, through the fact that they've arrested several other people, and so that has given us a bit of a paper trail as we've continued to cover this.
And he's been perhaps the most visible by popping up on social media. There had been many tips generated about his whereabouts, including the one himself going on social media. They were able to pinpoint a house there. It's now almost 6 weeks since that escape. It is really considered remarkable that
and that's great for him. And now we're gonna move on because we got other news to catch up, and I don't want to just linger on him. So
really, we've been covering this story over the past several weeks, as we now know that a hearing has been delayed until next week for the man accused of assassinating Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark. I do want to bring in Paul Bloom at Fox 9 Minneapolis to talk more about all of this. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I know that this was actually supposed to be a hearing on several topics there, talking about the possibility of bond and all of that, right?
Yeah, this was scheduled, Josh, at 11 a.m. local time, Central Time here at the Federal Courthouse, U.S. District Court in downtown St. Paul. It was a preliminary hearing, making sure there's enough evidence to sort of move this case along towards trial, if that's where this ends up, as well as a detention hearing to set bond, any conditions, realistically, based on the crimes. Likely he is to whatever a judge would ultimately decide to remain behind bars while the case plays out. But it was interesting. Hearing was set to begin at 11 a.m. Vance Belter, this accused political assassin, accused of horrific crimes here in the Twin Cities area a couple weeks ago. He showed up. I immediately noticed his outfit. He was in a full body, what I would call a suicide protection suit. It was also referred to as a Gumby suit, fully padded, no undergarments, Velcroed at the shoulders, again, typically to protect someone
this
from
whole story
harming themselves.
Smells like shit.
And what was interesting is as soon as the hearing began, his defense attorney turned and pointed to that suit and sort of described this as one example of how he is being treated inhumanely. He is being housed under U.S. Marshals supervision at a suburban jail north of the Twin Cities here in Minnesota. And they have said he's basically just been given a mat and no pillow to sleep on. He must wear that suicide protection suit at all times, no undergarments. They leave the lights on 24/7. They spoke about doors slamming all the time, cells slamming. He's got headaches. He can't sleep. An inmate next to him is spreading feces all around the cell, and
who
the
cares?
smell is overcoming him.
Are you kidding me?
Basically, she said he is in
feel
no
sad for him and give
to
him a
move forward
pillow
with such
and pat
important
him
matters
at
in the
night
legal
to make sure he
proceedings.
feels comfortable.
The government spoke briefly. They said they have
He's
shared
lucky
the same
he's
concerns
alive.
about how he's being treated at this jail. They're working with the U.S. Marshals. They're working with
He's
the county
being
jail
treated the
there
way he's being treated.
get the situation remedied. But for now, the magistrate judge basically agreed with the defense and said, yeah, given his current status, let's delay this 1 week, maybe get him in a better frame, improve his conditions, let him get some sleep, some rest so he can talk with his attorneys and then address these legal matters. But really stunning developments for what we were expecting were going to be very much legal proceedings, but it turned into this sort of statement on the conditions he is facing in the Sherburne County Jail up in Elk River, Minnesota.
And Paul, any indication from the judge, anything of that nature, legal experts, that there is even a chance that he could be granted bond and released until the trial?
I mean, the universal feeling up here is no. I mean, these crimes are unprecedented. We certainly cover enough federal criminal court cases in this jurisdiction to recognize people are held in custody pending proceedings for far lesser crimes. So experts, the judge it wasn't even an issue, so we couldn't even read tea leaves with this judge. He didn't even make any comments. But it is a detention hearing. All defendants are entitled to one, but the sentiment is up here that realistically any federal judge at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the DOJ,
I don't feel sorry
specifically asked for him to be held pending trial or the continuation of this
Maybe
case.
He'll get a pardon
and the expectation would certainly be this judge
Tim
would sign off on that.
And my last question here before I let you go, because I know there's a lot going on there. We obviously know that Melissa Hortman is lying in state alongside her husband right now, but a lot of folks aren't necessarily following every detail of the situation that happened earlier on this month at their home. Can you explain kind of the latest information that we do have? I know there is a lot, but there's still an active investigation going on.
Yeah, no, the dots still have to be connected. This potentially has is a capital punishment type case. The DOJ, Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney's Office
He's going to see
here in the District of Minnesota will have to make a decision ultimately whether or not that if convicted, that sort of all of the totality of what happened that overnight, early Saturday morning, did in fact happen, and that Vance Belter, if this is the direction they want to go, want to seek a death penalty in this case. So this is serious. They're connecting the dots here. They're all the search warrants have become public in the last few days to sort of shed more light on what was going on during the search for Vance Belter. I do, before I get deeply into that, just want to point out to our viewers here, because you mentioned it.
State law does not allow for the death penalty. A person in Minnesota could still face the federal death penalty for certain crimes. If a crime falls under federal jurisdiction, federal prosecutors can pursue a death sentence.
Oh, they can.
If convicted, the execution would take place at a federal prison in a state where it is allowed.
Oh, and this is federal, I believe, because he killed federal. These individuals he killed, they were politicians, right? So this is federal. So he can see the death penalty, but it has to be done in a federal prison. Wow. Okay. Oh, he's shit out of luck, and he's complaining about fucking the way the conditions is, and he's can't sleep at night, and he has headaches because he keeps hearing the jail cells opening and closing at night. Oh, boo-hoo, you piece of shit. Like, who gives a fuck about you? You know how much I give a fuck about you? This how much. I'm going to the next story.
Back here on Live Now from Fox. It is 1:47 on the East Coast and 10:47 on the West Coast. It is a big day of breaking news here on Live Now from Fox, and I do want to take you to another story that we are following right now as we get all of the information coming in here. Here is the information as we take a look over at Washington, D.C., as the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security and
I wanted to go to Washington, but look how they have it covered up.
TPS for roughly 520,000 Haitians currently residing in the U.S. Taking a live look over the Capitol at this hour, as again, all of this information here is just coming in. The TPS designations for the country will officially expire August 3rd of 2025, and the termination will be effective on Tuesday, September 2nd of this year. A DHS spokesperson saying, quote, "This decision restores integrity in our immigration system and ensures that temporary protective status is actually temporary." Quote, "The environmental situation in Haiti has improved enough that it is safe for Haitian citizens to return home. We encourage these individuals to take advantage of the department's resources in returning to Haiti, which can be arranged through the CBP Home app. Haitian nationals may pursue lawful status through other immigration benefit requests if eligible." End quote. Kristi Noem made the decision to revoke TPS status after reviewing the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services report, which showed that Haiti no longer meets the statutory requirements that grant foreign residents the ability to obtain temporary protected status. Sources at DHS tell Fox News
there are some really nice
encouraging Haitians in the U.S. under TPS
I
use
knew
the
in South
CBP
Florida,
Home app to
nice
secure a safe departure with a complimentary plane ticket and a $1,000 exit bonus. TPS was created by Congress in the Immigration Act of 1990
Have you ever had
with the
Haitian
intention
food?
of allowing residents of
And
countries who
it's so
face
good. I
natural
love the
disasters,
oxtail.
war, or other unsafe, extraordinary
but
conditions
That's
to
just
designate
me. I
refugee
like
in
certain
the
food,
U.S. Now,
and
the program can be extended in increments
good.
of 18-month periods. The Trump administration has
I
made
mean,
a
if the
hard
Haitians are doing
push to
good
roll
and
back
they're not
TPS
criminals and
designations to fulfill a
they're
campaign
well-abiding
promise to strengthen the
citizens,
border
like
and deport many
I don't
of
mind
the
that they
illegal
stay here.
migrants who crossed the border during the Biden administration. President Joe
But if
Biden
they came here
granted
illegally,
TPS
they need to
status
leave.
to Venezuelans in 2021, and again just before he left office in January 2025, a designation to the South American nation from April 3rd, 2025 to October 2nd of 2026. It is estimated the protection there would have applied to roughly 300,000 Venezuelan nationals had the Trump administration not rolled back that decision there eventually. Again, we are following all of the latest developments here, as we did learn a short time ago from DHS that the Trump administration's Department of Homeland Security is ending that temporary protection status for about 520,000 Haitians currently residing in the U.S. The designation for the country expires August 3rd, and the termination will be effective on Tuesday, September 2nd.
Wow. All right, let's go to the next story.
Back here on Live Now from Fox as we approach the top of the hour on this Friday, June 27th. My name is Josh Breslow, and we do continue to follow a lot of breaking news coming into our newsroom. Let's pop this up here on your screen as the Oversight Committee, specifically the Republicans there, have now posted this to their X page saying Karine Jean-Pierre called to testify in Biden cover-up. Chairman Comer, which is, of course, James Comer, demands interviews with KJP, Zients, Sams, and Bates over Biden's mental decline scandal and shady auto pen scheme. The cover-up is unraveling. The truth will come out, and then you can see the photos of all of them there. On the left-hand side of your screen, of course, Karine Jean-Pierre was the White House press secretary for the White House during the Biden administration. There's also this letter that was tweeted out by Representative James Comer, and it's obviously very lengthy, but I do want to read just a portion of it because it is the letter that was sent to Karine Jean-Pierre. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is investigating the role of former senior White House officials in possibly usurping authority from former President Joe Biden and the ramifications of a White House staff intent on hiding his rapidly worsening mental and physical facilities. The committee has been investigating this issue for nearly a year. The committee seeks to understand who made key decisions and exercise the powers of the executive branch during the previous administration, possibly without former President Biden's consent. The committee requests your testimony to evaluate your eyewitness account of former President Biden's decline.
Maybe I'll read it.
He served as the White House press secretary for President Biden during the last 2 years of his administration and were trusted inner circle confidant as you were promoted to senior advisor to the president in October of 2024. You were not only near the president daily, but you were alongside the ranks of the president's top confidants, like senior advisors there. Your assertion on multiple occasions that President Biden's decline was attributable to such tactics as cheap fakes or misinformation cannot go without investigation. If White House staff carried out a strategy lasting months or even years to hide the chief executive's condition or to perform his duties, Congress may need to consider a legislative response. The committee believes you have information critical to the investigation and requests your appearance for a transcribed interview on August 18th. By July 4th, please confirm you will attend on August 18th voluntarily.
This is what happens to corrupt people.
Again, this is just coming in from James Comer and from the Republicans on the Oversight Committee. We'll let you know what the response is here, as we could potentially get it in the coming hours or days.
Wow, that's wild. That is wild. Let's go to the next story.
Good morning. It's Friday, June 27th. I'm Jeanne Francine here with you for the next few hours to give you all of your breaking news alerts, top stories, and of course, your live events of the day. As we come on the air this Friday morning, we are following some breaking news as it relates to 6 Americans out in South Korea. I want to transition to give you the latest information from the Associated Press, but also from the New York Post this morning. You see on your screen, as they do report, 6 Americans have been detained for trying to send rice and Bibles to North Korea by sea. This is a developing story. And as we are getting more information, I do want to transition to give you a live look out in South Korea. A few minutes shy from the top of the 6 o'clock hour, this shot courtesy of Earth Camp. Our content partners over at the Associated Press reporting 6 Americans detained this Friday in South Korea for trying to send 1,600 plastic bottles filled with rice, miniature Bibles, $1 bills, and USB sticks toward North Korea by sea. Local police confirming this information to the Associated Press.
Why would they do that?
The Americans were apprehended before throwing the bottles into the sea so they could float toward North Korean shores on the tides. We're also learning that local police are saying the Americans are being investigated on allegations that they violated the law on the management of safety and disasters.
That's crazy.
The officers who did request to remain anonymous because they weren't authorized to speak to the media on the matter did refuse to provide personal details of the Americans in line with privacy rules.
Why would they do that, though?
We're also learning this morning the U.S. Embassy in South Korea has not provided any public comment. Now, for further background, we do know that for several years, activists have sought to float plastic bottles or fly balloons across the border, carrying anti-North Korea propaganda leaflets and USB thumb drives carrying South Korean dramas and K-pop songs, a practice that was banned from 2021 to 2023 over concerns it could inflame tensions with the North. North Korea has responded to previous balloon campaigns with fiery rhetoric and other shows of anger. We do know last year the country launched its own balloons across the border, dumping rubbish on various South Korean sites, including the presidential compound. The Associated Press also reporting that back in 2023, South Korea's constitutional court struck down a controversial law that criminalized the sending of leaflets and other items to North Korea, calling it an excessive restriction on free speech. But since taking office in early June, the new liberal government president is pushing to crack down on such civilian campaigns with other safety-related laws to avoid a flare-up with tensions with North Korea and to promote the safety of frontline South Korean residents. We do know also back on June 14th, police detained an activist for allegedly flying balloons toward North Korea from a restaurant island. It's unclear this morning if North Korea will respond to Lee's gesture after vowing last year to sever relations with South Korea.
It's pretty cool. Like, look how they're walking. There's a lot of people walking.
Official talks between the Koreas have been stalled since 2019 when U.S. led diplomacy on North Korean denuclearization. So we know this is a developing story. If you're just now tuning in, that latest information I provided to you, courtesy of the Associated Press, giving you a live look out in Seoul, South Korea, this Friday morning, now hitting 6 o'clock on the East Coast. Again, following the latest news also from the New York Post this morning, as they say 6 Americans have been detained for trying to send rice and Bibles to North Korea by sea. As you can imagine, this is a developing story, so make sure you are staying tuned to Live Now from Fox.
Well, as we wait here for President Trump at the White House to speak, a House divided over who leaked the low-confidence preliminary assessment of Iran's nuclear facilities.
But history shows almost all leaks come out of the executive branch.
The low-confidence preliminary assessment that was leaked, sadly and dangerously, probably from this body.
Okay, so let's bring in Fox News chief political analyst Britt Hume. Britt, good to see you. Happy Friday to you. A lot of finger pointing going on in Washington, which is pretty par for the norm. The president blames Democrats for this leak as the White House really wages this
you got to blame whoever leaked
and they want to prosecute this
leaker. If it's a Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter.
How confident
Why does it have to be
that
a
we'll
matter of
ever
party?
know who the
Doesn't make
leaker
sense.
is, because we're still waiting to find out who the leaker is of the Dobbs decision.
That's right, Aisha. And there have been a lot more leak investigations than there have been leakers found, and a lot more leakers than leakers investigated. So, you know, they may find out who leaked this, but I don't think it matters very much. What mattered, of course, was the play that the story got. A very preliminary report, rated low confidence, and it dominated national news for several days because media outlets picked it up and ran with it and treated it more seriously than I think it manifestly deserved. So that would be my point of contention here. And, you know, the administration has criticized the media about this, and justly so, I think.
Well, it's
Hey,
interesting
Tyson,
because
if you're
Congress
here,
finally
I
got
got
its
an idea
classified
for
briefing
another
that it
shirt.
had been begging and pleading
I
for.
keep getting
Democrats
ideas.
came out of it.
Tyson,
not saying,
use
not
me
opposing,
as much as you
you
can,
know,
bro.
that this facility
Give
was
me
in
permission
fact
to use this
destroyed. In
brain.
fact, they were arguing
Because I have
over
ideas
the
for shirts.
words that are
I always
being
come up
used
with
to
like
describe
good shirts.
what happened to this facility. So Chris Murphy,
And
the
in
senator
the
from
future,
Connecticut, said, "I just don't
we'll have
think the
more
president
to
was telling
sell."
the truth when he said this program was obliterated." Britt, does it matter what language you're using? The program has been set back.
Well, the program has clearly been set back, and whether it was set back for months,
I
years,
am
or
ashamed,
forever
dude.
is
It's nonstop, my
of some
brain.
obvious interest. But there's a broader picture here, and I don't think we need to pay a lot of attention to the Chris Murphys.
All right, I got you, brother.
Diehard
I
anti-Trump
got you.
partisan.
I just
He
have
says
an
all
idea.
kinds of
Like it's
exotic
like
things, and you know, I wouldn't pay him a lot of mind. And I think we need to look kind of with a broader lens here at the situation in the Mideast and well beyond.
it's
For
such
example,
a cool. It would
a
be
year
such a
ago at
cool
this
shirt,
time, Iran
Tyson.
was
I
on
think
its
it'll
way
make
to
good
building
money.
a nuclear weapon. How close is anybody's guess?
I'm just trying to help you make money, man.
It had its robust military
More
forces
money.
in place. It had its
Make more money.
feared revolutionary
Gotta
guard
push
command
marketing.
structure in place. It had proxies
Be the marketing
located all
agent.
around the Mideast, Hamas and
Push.
Hezbollah being conspicuous examples of that. And today, it doesn't have any of that. And it also had allies in the world, Russia being the most
Dude,
obvious
the shirt would be
example.
so funny.
And look at Russia.
I'm not going to forget what it is
because
because it's in my brain. So
in the wake of the fall of the Assad regime, which was an
it
ally
makes
in
me
Syria,
laugh.
an ally of Russia,
No,
a country
anytime,
to
man.
whose rescue Putin and his regime had come before. But this time around, they're too tied up in the situation in Ukraine to do anything about it. Similarly, Iran is hit. Obviously, wouldn't the Iranian regime love to have had some help from its ally Russia,
Let's do it.
whom it's been.
I give you the ideas,
supplying,
man. I give you like
drones and other
I have
military
like
equipment.
really cool
Russia
shirts
didn't lift a
that,
finger. Neither did its its
it
friend in
gets
China,
people. It'll get
which,
people's attention.
gets its oil from Iran. They didn't do anything either.
It'd be
And
like
one of the
comedic
important
in
things
a ways.
I see is whatever ends up being the final battle damage assessment from this bombing, the fact that the United States could pull it off and could travel there unseen, undetected,
Thanks to Israel.
and unshot at
Thanks
by
to
the
Israel.
Iranian regime,
Because they
do what
did
it did,
the attack and they
on
did
top of
take
what
out a
Israel
lot
had
of the
already done,
weaponry,
is
all the
astonishing. And
the surface to air missiles
the
and
chessboard on the
surface to
international scene
surface
in a
and
way that the whole 12-day war does, in a way that I never anticipated could have happened as quickly as
and they weakened them so much that Trump was able to take advantage of the
It kind of got
situation.
overlooked, but he called the Ayatollah a liar because, he's spinning this to his own people, trying to say that Iran won this war with Israel. And then this is the president saying that he would bomb Iran again if it had to come to that. Watch this.
If the intelligence reports conclude that Iran can enrich uranium to a level that concerns you, would you consider bombing the country again?
Without question, absolutely.
I want to get what you make of that,
Trump's
because I
like,
think what you're saying
sure.
here is that the story that's getting
Absolutely.
missed is
I'll bomb the shit
what
out of
this has
them.
done to Iran, the corner that it has put Iran in, where it has no
How many
friends,
Mission
has no
Impossibles
allies,
is there now?
and it's in a pretty bad bind.
Trump is doing his own Mission
the other thing
Impossibles.
about what the president said, Aisha, is we've proved we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't see it coming. They didn't think it was coming. They couldn't do anything about it. They never got off a shot. I'm not
They
even
didn't
sure
believe
their
it was
systems
coming.
could
That's
see
the difference.
The B-2 bombers coming. Israel has proved that it can take out their air defense system, which it had already done some time back, and that it could knock out much of their ballistic missile facilities. that's something that presumably Israel and its ally, the United States, could do again if necessary.
That's crazy, right?
And obviously,
7 B-2
when the
bombers.
Ayatollah comes out and talks about this being a great victory for Iran and how he slapped the United States across the face, or however he put it, was palpably ridiculous, particularly in light of the extreme competency and proficiency shown by our military at our base there in Qatar when they fired, 14 rockets at it, and none of them got through.
Well, we will see.
I think the international chessboard has been reset probably for some time to come.
Absolutely. And we will see how long the Ayatollah can actually hang on to power in that country. Britt Hume, always good to see you.
He's not going to live that long. So I don't know why they're so worried about the Ayatollah.
Click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page.
I don't know why would they be so concerned about the Ayatollah. The dude has cancer. He's dying. He's dying. He's a very older gentleman. And all the stress what's been going on over there, I'm pretty sure has put him in a pretty bad condition, health wise. So we need to see life after the Ayatollah. Who's gonna take over? That's the question. Who is gonna run? Run Iran? Who? But we'll find out. We'll find out soon. He don't have much time to live anyways, so I wouldn't focus too much of my energy on him. But let's go to this next story here. This one should be a little funny. I think it's just because this is a person that I dislike. I really don't like this person, and I feel bad, right? Because this person, she's just manipulated. And not only that, but she's just a discouraged. I just feel so horrible that she's a Puerto Rican, like me. And we're talking about the clown show, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of AOC. So let's go to this news report.
Feud between AOC and President Trump, bringing her alleged Bronx girl roots into question. The president ripping into the Democrat for the rise in crime and poverty in her district after she called for his impeachment over the U.S. strikes on Iran. The congresswoman responding to Trump, posting, quote, "Mr. President, don't take your anger out on me. I'm just a silly girl. Also, I'm a Bronx girl. You should know that we eat Queens boys for breakfast." Respectfully, President grew up in Queens. But a New York assemblyman was quick to call her out, writing, "If you're a Bronx girl, then why are you in my Yorktown yearbook? Give it up already."
Damn.
That GOP Assemblyman Matt Slater. Assemblyman, good morning to you. So apparently your high school produced a lot of lawmakers and on different sides of the aisle.
That we did.
So what do you think about AOC's Bronx girl claims?
Well, I just think it's a bold-faced lie. And I saw the attacks on the president.
Damn.
Her claims that she's a big, tough Bronx girl. The fact of the matter is she grew up in Yorktown. She was on my track team. And everybody in our community knows this is just a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, so she was born in the Bronx. Then when she was very young, moved to Yorktown for, she has said, better
She's
schools.
a Yorktown
and then she
girl.
moved back to the Bronx
She's been
when she
living
was post-college, I believe.
World.
So should this matter to her constituents?
Well, I think when you look at how they manufacture candidates, the Democratic Party, it absolutely should, because she's lying about her background. She's lying about her upbringing. And the fact of the matter is that there's an authenticity problem with the Democratic Party. If you look at AOC, if you look at Gavin Newsom, you look at Tim Walz, they do not connect with their voters if they actually know the truth about them. So this is just part of the big lie that they continue to peddle just to make sure that they win elections.
So what is Yorktown like? Is it anything like,
we can make a song about this.
Nothing whatsoever. I know exactly what neighborhood AOC grew up in.
Downtown man.
I was a supervisor there for 3 years. And I can tell you that it is nothing like the Bronx.
Rank on you.
But a little bit up
You're
north,
a clown.
right?
Correct. We're about 40 minutes north of the Bronx.
Kind of rural or at least historic.
Great suburban town. Touch of rural to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, look at that school. How nice.
Beautiful. What was she like in high school?
You know, we were on the same track team. I was a senior. She was a freshman. Our paths didn't cross too much. But, you know, again, the fact of the matter is she grew up in Yorktown. She's a product of Yorktown. To sit there and say that she's a Bronx girl is just patently ridiculous.
Look at her in the middle with her little
that
curl.
everyone's talking right now from New York is Zora Mamdani. As a matter of fact, her
X account is filled with endorsements for him. You serve with him right now as an assemblyman.
Oh no, look at this.
What do you think
this
about
one's going to
him?
get deported too.
Dangerously unqualified, no question about it. I do serve with Assemblyman Mamdani currently, and he likes to joke around that we are both red, but different shades of red, and he likes to peddle his socialist views in the chamber. And so he is head of the DSA in the assembly. And as I said, the fact that he is the nominee now for New York City mayor is just crazy to think about.
A lot happened this week, and that was one of the things. Assemblyman, thank you so much for joining us. I guess
I don't think he's going to become mayor, because if he becomes mayor, that's going to be a shit show.
Right?
Save your yearbook this year.
Thanks. It was great meeting you.
You too. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.
That would be a shit show if that dude became mayor. Like, Trump already said he ain't gonna be no fucking mayor. They're gonna try to kick his ass out of the country. They're gonna try to kick him out. They're gonna be like, get the fuck out, get the fuck out. But it's just a weird world we're living in right now, and it's only gonna get weirder. That's all. That's it's the times that we're living in right now is very unique, and the Bidens, I'm pretty sure they were like rooting for Iran. They wanted this war to be a forever war, so that way it'll be the distraction like COVID was. They thought this was going to be like, oh man, yes. Biden was so excited. He was like, yes, come on, Iran. And the next thing you know, it ended like a dud, like duds. It was like that was it. That was like Israel did the majority of the job. We just took out the damn nuclear sites and destroyed it, because do you see how the energy has changed? Iran is like, oh man, that was our cash cow, and now we can't do it now, and we're being monitored because they're looking at us as satellite images every day. So we can't do this. We got to focus on the oil and trade, and make money off of that, because you're not going to make money off of enriching uranium and shipping it across, all over around the world. Who knows where this uranium has gone and so forth. They're missing still, like, what was it, the 900 pounds, 1,000 pounds? I think it's a lot more than that, to be honest with you, but, we'll go with the narrative. But let's get another story up here. I really want me some Pat Bondi. How about you guys? Like, Pat Bondi is badass. Like, she is, I think, one of the best of all time. Give me 1 second. Let me set it up here. Okay, here we go. We're doing this live, so bear with me as I set everything up.
Thank you, President Trump. Thank you for fighting for all Americans.
Right,
Americans are finally getting what they voted for. No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts and 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies, from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. And on immigration, on a side note, today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have allowed district court judges to be emperors. They vetoed all of President Trump's power, and they cannot do that. This has been a bipartisan problem that has lasted 5 presidential terms, 5 different presidents, and it has ended today. We will continue to fight for President Trump's policies. I want to thank the Office of White House Counsel, Dave Warrington. You and your staff have been incredible. Our Solicitor General's office, John Sowers, Sarah Harris, and Todd Blanche and Emil Bovey. Todd's going to say a few words because we've had another major ruling today on transgender books and some other great wins that we've had. But no longer will they have this power in our country. It is the president's authority under his executive branch to do everything to fight for the American people, and he will continue to do that. That's why he was overwhelmingly elected. Thank you.
Wow, that's so powerful. I'm here writing ideas for t-shirts. My head is just going like 100 miles per hour right now. I got some good medicine, so my brain is just, it's running. But as you can see, the next news cycle here I have is these Iranians, and this Alberto Garcia won't be on U.S. soil much longer. So they're going to deport his ass out of here. But these are the 11 Iranian nationals that were freaking here, and they got arrested and thrown in jail, and 9 out of 10 will be deported back to Iran. So what a, like, you will find these type of people like in gas stations and bodegas. Like, I wonder what they were doing. Like, what was their jobs here in America? Like, what were they doing? Like, I would like to get the breakdown, you know? Just don't show me pictures and then tell me, yeah, we arrested them and this and this and that. Okay, that's great. But what were these individuals doing here in America? Like, how were they getting money? Were they working? Were they getting any benefits? Did they have cell phones? Did they have, like, see, stuff like that? These are questions I would ask as a reporter. But the only thing we get is this, and let's listen into it and enjoy. It's crazy.
DHS, Department of Homeland Security, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia McLaughlin. Good morning, Tricia. So we now know that the government can tie at least 2 of these people arrested to terrorist organizations. I mean, this is a real concern for our country.
Mark, this is absolutely a real concern for our country. And actually, since President Trump took office, 570 known or suspected terrorists have been arrested within the interior of our country. We know it only takes one of these depraved individuals to create violence in our country. And our Homeland Security investigations under Secretary Noem's leadership and under President Trump's bold leadership are hyper-focused on getting these individuals out, arresting them, detaining them, and ultimately deporting them to a high security detention facility.
And so with, these sleeper cells, obviously, we don't know who all was let into this country by the previous administration, not just from countries like Iran, but from really all over the world. So what is being done to assure that Americans are kept safe?
Well, we're absolutely increasing our communications, our information sharing with state and local governments, but as well, actually, Secretary Noem was just in Honduras, she was just in Panama, Costa Rica, and Guatemala, and they made information sharing agreements, biometric agreements during that visit. That's so important because we need to know who is on the upstream trying to enter this country. Have they been previously deported and are trying to re-enter the country. But Americans can rest assured we are very much on top of this. Our Homeland Security investigators, they're not resting. And it didn't take, of course, the war with Israel and Iran. It didn't take that military strike to get us on top of this. Since day one of the Trump administration, we've known that there's known and suspected terrorists in this country, and we are doing everything we can to get them out.
Yeah, Tricia, I mean, I know right now a lot of folks are planning what they're doing next weekend for the 4th of July holidays, or they're going on summer vacations. And earlier this week, the Department of Homeland Security put out a bulletin saying, quote, the likelihood of violent extremists in the homeland independently mobilizing to violence in response to the conflict would likely increase if the Iranian leadership issued a religious ruling calling for retaliatory violence against the United States. Do you know, are there any specific threats at this moment that we should be worried about? Should people avoid large crowds or fireworks gatherings?
No, don't bend to the terrorists. There's not an increased terror alert in any way. We have no credible threats that we're aware of. Celebrate this country, celebrate this great president, and don't bow to the terrorists, because what they want is to slow us down and to make us scared, and we're not going to let that happen. Our law enforcement, that was a bulletin to our state and local law enforcement to increase information sharing, and so that our law enforcement knows to have their heads on a swivel, and if they see something, say something.
Tricia, can I ask you about alligator Alcatraz? So Florida's looking to house a new ICE detention center. 5,000 illegal immigrants are expected to be held there by the end of the summer. I mean, if I try to escape a place that I know there's alligators outside waiting for me, I might stay put. I think it's a good idea. What do you think?
I think it's a fantastic idea. Secretary Noem, since the start of this administration, she's asked for the help of state and local governments. We have a bed space problem. A key operational part of arrests and deportations is the ability to house people somewhere until they face deportation. Every single morning I have a call Charla, and when they ask how much bed space do we currently have, this facility would increase bed space up to 5,000 beds. But that big, beautiful bill will do even more than that. So we are really encouraging members of Congress, Senate, please vote for that big, beautiful bill, because that's going to get us across the finish line and make sure that we have that bed space to turbocharge our arrest and deportation efforts.
Yeah.
Speaking of people who have been arrested and deported, so it appears Democrats' favorite illegal, the so-called Maryland man, is back in the news. Axios reports the department plans to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia again. The White House calls it fake news. So the so-called Maryland man's going to stand trial for his human trafficking charges. What's the truth here, Trish? Is he going or is he staying?
He will be in a U.S. detention facility. He will face justice here in the United States. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he's not some innocent Maryland man, as the media has tried to force-feed Americans for the last 3 months. He's a member of MS-13. He's a human trafficker. He's a known wife beater. And this is a man who should not be on U.S. soil for long, and he won't be. Ultimately, his last place will be off of U.S. soil in El Salvador, where he belongs.
Information.
No.
Truth.
Pretty cool. Let's go to the next story here. Let me get it all ready here. Okay, let's go with the gaslighting. From Australia, Sky News. This is that Pierre story where she's coming in. She's going to be... Well, they're going to be talking about, what was it, her deal? This is a bizarre tell-all book deal. Oh, goodness gracious. This is going to be fun. Listen to this craziness out of Australia.
We have to start with Biden's White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. My goodness, the woman who spent years lying to the American people, completely complicit in the big operation attempting to cover up Biden's decline, now claims that she doesn't want to be a Democrat. She's suddenly an independent and is coming out with a tell-all book, Independent, a look inside a broken White House, outside the party lines. I'm not sure who is going to be forking out for this, but let's just take a quick look back on the role she played as White House press secretary. The gaslighting was on another level.
He is as sharp as ever, as I have known him to be in my engagement, in my experience with him.
Oh, how many times were we told that? And remember when she tried to pretend the videos of Biden looking increasingly terrible were cheap fakes and disinformation?
There seems to be a sort of rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused. I'm wondering if the White House is especially worried about the fact that this appears to be a pattern that we're seeing more often.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this the cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes. Video. They are done in bad faith.
Who comes over to work that
some of
says
your news
cheap
organization
What is a
have
cheap fake
been
mean?
very clear, have stressed that these right-wing critics of the president have
What
a
is a
credibility
cheap
problem
fake?
Because of the
That
fact
hair you're
checkers
wearing?
have repeatedly
No,
caught
I'm
them
ranking on you,
pushing
girl.
misinformation,
That white is way
disinformation.
too white for you.
And she still
That
pretends
white
that she
is
wasn't part of
way
one of
too
the
white.
biggest political scandals of all time, the Biden cover-up.
It
But
makes her
just
hair
like
stand
Jake
up more
Tapper,
like a
who was
mop.
also part of that cover-up and is still pretending that he wasn't really and is now
That hair
profiting from that.
could talk,
Karine
man.
Jean-Pierre
It'll
has
tell
found
so
herself
many
a book
secrets.
deal where this time she'll
You would say
apparently be
like,
telling you
this bitch is a liar.
And this is my answer. And what I mean by that
Look,
is
there you
in an
go.
era of misinformation, disinformation, the regressiveness of social policy, what we're seeing currently right now, what I have decided to do, and I really have thought long and hard about this, is to follow my own compass.
And the PR around this is such a joke. Hatchet Book Group said in a press release, Jean-Pierre didn't come to her decision to be an independent lightly. She takes us through the 3 weeks that led to Biden's abandoning his bid for a second term and the betrayal by the Democratic Party that led to his decision. In a hard-hitting yet hopeful critique, Jean-Pierre defines what it means to be part of the growing percentage of our fractured electorate that is independent, why it can be worthwhile to carve a political space more loyal to personal beliefs than a party affiliation, and what questions you need to ask yourself to determine where you fit politically. I mean, come on. Karine Jean-Pierre has no credibility. She's likely going to be getting the knives out. She might name some names in this book and then make a few dollars. But isn't it interesting that after working for Obama and Biden, she's now urging Americans to essentially follow her and abandon the Democrat Party?
That was a crazy story. Let's go to this next one. What's the birthright citizenship? Let's continue watching the CBS one because they get on my nerves. So I was able to calm down for a bit, and let's continue listening to CBS. They drive me crazy. You know, it's just the gaslighting and the bullshit reporting. It's horrible. So let's give them another chance. This is me giving them another chance. But if they get out of line, I'm just gonna cut it off. I'm gonna put a shoe in it. I'm throw the shoe at it and say it's over, it's done. But yeah, let's continue watching this craziness. This gives me crazy vibes. Look at the face. Like this girl, she needs to sleep more. She has too much stress in her face. Like you can see, like she's gonna get old before her time. This is not good. It's just not good. But let's listen in and yeah, let's see what's up.
Is where it would be appropriate for a single court to issue a nationwide injunction. And the liberal justices were arguing this is just such a case because it's so obviously unconstitutional, because it's so clearly not considering the constitution or the legality of the executive order. This is where we should allow a court to come in. Now, of course, this is the dissent, so that's not the opinion of the court. But I think that what you see from these liberal justices was a sense not that, oh, okay, we should just willy-nilly allow any district court to issue a nationwide injunction in any case, but that there should be certain cases where it would be appropriate because of the clear disregard that the administration had for the law, and the obviousness, how clearly unconstitutional the substance is. So then if you listen to her, she was reading it from the bench, or you read her dissent, you can see some of the arguments that will ultimately be raised, which when, as Jan said, the case reaches the substantive part of the case reaches the court in the appropriate manner.
And Jan, before we move on to some of the other decisions we're waiting for, your take on how the liberal justices saw this.
Oh, I think Rebecca nailed it. I mean, she's exactly right. And that's exactly what Justice Kagan said at the argument. You know, as I said, she's been very skeptical of these things and said that back in 2022 that courts needed to get a grip on them. But she said there could be an important case where you know, they were merited. And obviously the liberal justices believe this was exactly the case, that they should have done it. This was, you know, if you want to scale back nationwide injunctions, do it in another case. So yeah, that is exactly right. And I think that Justice Barrett writing this decision is really interesting. Obviously, she's come under a lot of criticism from some conservatives who are frustrated with some of her rulings that have gone against Trump. She's a very careful justice, and she is not a justice, which is what frustrates some conservatives, who's going to swing for the fences. She's going to decide the case right in front of her in a generally conservative way. And based on my skim of this opinion, this is a very careful opinion by Justice Barrett that suggests that, setting aside what the liberals have said and the concern they have, that there are ways for courts to act quickly in cases like this.
Shades of Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who perhaps came into the Supreme Court also with some conservative bona fides, but oftentimes, not a lot, but occasionally.
I think that's wishful thinking by liberals. Yeah, no, she's conservative. I don't see her being one of those conservatives who, but we'll see, Vlad. That's the thing about the court. You know, they'll surprise you in 5 or 10 years.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about some of the other decisions that we're waiting, because to remind our viewers, this is actually the last day of the term, Jan.
Well, I'm frantically pressing the refresh button, you know, because I've got it on the Supreme Court website, which is where the opinions just pop up when they're being released. We should be getting another one any second. There's 5 left to go in this term. Today's the last day of the Supreme Court's term. There are several that are highly significant cases, including one from Maryland that essentially involves a lawsuit by parents of elementary school children. They say that their deeply held religious beliefs mean they should be able to opt their children out of story time when it involves some of the books that the school board had selected that really kind of embrace gender identity and other LGBTQ issues. That is a big
one
that we should be getting any minute.
Yeah, they need to excuse these kids from that craziness. That shouldn't even be taught in school, especially like the young kids.
When they're drawing up legislative districts, that's a big case that has practical implications too for Democrats and whether or not they're going to pick up additional seats with, you know, Congress so narrowly divided. And then we have a case from Texas about online pornography and whether or not states can impose age restrictions and verification to kind of keep it away out of the eyes of kids.
Yeah, they should.
The porn industry is arguing that that violates the First Amendment right of adults. And so the court has to decide if states can ask for that kind of age verification.
Yeah, they should be able to do that.
Porn websites in the interest of protecting children. Pretty much as you have to show, obviously, I mean, this came up at argument. It seemed like Justice was saying it's a common sense. You know, you have to show ID to get into a strip club, to buy a Playboy, to go in the back room of like the adult video section. So
this is freaky.
Why couldn't states require some kind of age verification?
This is getting a little weird. Why are we going freaky here?
I expect Texas will probably win this case, but we'll see in a matter of the next hour. We'll know, Vlad.
Yeah.
If somebody was to gamble and say that someone in CBS News today was going to mention Playboy, they would have made a lot of money. They would have made a lot of money. It's an important day. They have like a lot of to go over and very important cases and so forth. And tomorrow, I think I'll review the cases and so forth because I think they're still working. Because this is their last day, so they're going to be going on hiatus for a little bit. Yeah, but let's continue here. You can tell it's 4th of July soon because they're shooting fireworks and it's June 27th. But there's towns here in Connecticut that they don't shoot all the fireworks on 4th of July because the air quality will be too horribly like over here. So they start fireworks like today. Like today is Friday. Certain towns they'll have fireworks, and then tomorrow other towns will have fireworks, and then it goes like that throughout until we get to like July 4th. And there's even fireworks after July 4th because if it rains or any type of like delays from other shows that are going to be held throughout the state, then they schedule it out. But I've seen fireworks that were shot up like a couple of like 3-4 days after 4th of July. So if you hear the booms, that's what's going on here. It's nightfall. It's 9:19 in the evening here, and the bombs are bursting in the air, and it sounds pretty. Must look beautiful. I can't see from here, but I could definitely hear it because it's just literally right there. Good thing I have the cats on the other side of my place, so they don't really hear the booms as loud as in here. In here, you can actually hear the concussion and feel the concussion. But my cats are on the other side, so they're hanging out and sleeping on the cat tree. So, but let's continue. Let's continue watching CBS here and see what's up. She was talking about Playboy and stuff. She just, I was like, wait a minute. She's talking about adult rooms where you go to the back. How does she know? How does she know about this? Wait a minute. Let's not let her slide on this. Should I rewind it and have her say it again? I should do that, right? Like, that was a little creepy. Like, what was that about? She went like really Playboyish, and I don't know how far back to go. Let me see. Let's go about here, maybe. Let's go a little bit back here.
Congress so narrowly divided. And then we have a case from Texas about online pornography and whether or not states can impose age restrictions and verification to kind of keep it away out of the eyes of kids. The porn industry is arguing that violates the First Amendment right of adults. And so the court has to decide if states can ask for that kind of age verification for online porn websites in the interest of protecting children. Pretty much as you have to show, obviously, I mean, this came up at argument. It seemed like Justice was saying it's a common sense. You have to show ID to get into a strip club, to buy a Playboy, to go in the back room of like the adult video section. So why couldn't states require some kind of age verification?
I just don't know how she knows about all this stuff
online.
That's my question.
Texas will probably win this case, but we'll see in a matter of the next hour. We'll know, Vlad.
How does she know about the back rooms?
Jan and Rebecca, that we obviously had a special report around this case
the back
regarding
rooms is the question.
birthright citizenship obliquely. But these other three cases that you mentioned, Jan, seem to be more consequential to me, at least in the immediate next couple of days, in our immediate futures as Americans. And I name checked Sandra Day O'Connor.
I'm just laughing.
I'll never forget the very first time that I became aware of how Supreme Court justices could be sort of pithy, but also funny at the same time. Potter Stewart saying he doesn't know what he knows what pornography is when he sees it. I'm paraphrasing it, but that became the term.
Water.
Like,
Water
I know
time.
it when I see it. I know it when you see it. Yeah. All right, Jan, Rebecca, stand by.
Jan is a
that
freak.
Supreme Court website while we await that. Let's go. Are we going
Jan
to
is a
Natalie or to
freak.
Scott, guys? All right, we're going to go first to Scott
What's going on
McFarlane
with
on
Jan?
this, and
What
then
has
later
she
on
been
to Natalie
doing,
Brown, who's
man?
tracking all of this from the White House. But Scott, let's go to you. You have been standing by. You've been tracking all of this as well.
Yeah, Vlad, first of all, let me just set the scene at the Supreme Court. Pretty muted group here today. This doesn't bear any resemblance to what we saw here last summer when the Supreme Court made that landmark ruling on presidential immunity. But the timing of this ruling is not inconsequential at all. It's the end of the term, but it's also right in the middle of this multifaceted battle the administration is having with the court system. Some of it's legal, some of it's political. The legal cases are frequent and growing across the country. You know, the administration has sued to overturn court orders or just challenge the judges themselves.
Letitia James keeps suing Trump.
This week, Vlad, the administration,
Like he's
through the Department
bankrupting
of
New York,
Justice,
man, with
sued
all those
every
lawsuits,
sitting
man, because that's
federal
just not
judge
cheap.
in Maryland over an argument over how the court system in Maryland is processing some immigration cases. They're also accused by critics of defying court orders, including that court order to famously turn around that deportation plane that was headed to El Salvador on March 15th, and not promptly returning Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man mistakenly deported from Maryland to El Salvador in March. So you have those legal battles, but at the same time, Vlad, there is a political muscle the administration is flexing as it criticizes the courts and overreaches by the courts. One of the top advisors at the White House posted judicial coup on social media when he disagreed with one of the recent court rulings. You can just see here the administration is having quite a time in its first 5 months battling the federal court system.
It's horrible.
Yeah, for sure. Scott, we're going to keep you there in front of the Supreme Court because we're still awaiting those 3 or 4 other decisions. But while you stand by, I want to go to Natalie Brand, who's at the White House for us. And Natalie, you've heard the way that Jan Crawford broke down this decision, and you've heard Rebecca Roife's explanation of the decision when it comes to birthright citizenship. But now you've got the White House and the politics that politicians inject into these court cases. And so the question becomes, you probably don't have reaction just yet from the White House, but how has the president of the United States and the administration been talking about this case leading up to this decision?
Yeah, and Vlad, it is surprising we don't have reaction quite yet. We've been monitoring all of the social media accounts. It's possible that the White House is waiting for the president himself to weigh in on social media, which sometimes happens when you're dealing with big developments or decisions like this. But, you know, this is a victory for executive power and the president's ability to enact policy without a single lower court judge having the ability to block it with a nationwide injunction. And we know that this is something that presidents of both parties
How she knows about the back room? That's all. That just cracks me up.
Jan alluded to that
I
as well.
can't wait to rewatch and listen to myself laugh.
Conservative states or liberal states take action
This is incredible.
With some of these policies and be able to really set the tone for the whole country. Now, critics warned that with this ruling, you could see a patchwork of different decisions across the country. Something else you've been talking about with Jan and the other legal analysts is this didn't touch the issue of birthright citizenship, which was this executive order that the president signed, right on day one to try to shape his immigration agenda. So we're really waiting to see what happens with next steps here in light of this new major ruling. What actions does the administration try to take on that front? And, overall, in trying to enact other policies, given this major decision by the Supreme Court to really partially block a lower court's ability to stop a policy outright. The argument that we heard during oral arguments was, and in past years, was maybe this should be, the domain of federal appeals panels or the Supreme Court itself. One note, too, in the dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor writes that no right is safe in this new legal regime the court creates, Vlad.
Interesting. Natalie, so you're gonna stand by for a reaction from the White House, and if you do get reaction and you're still standing in front of that camera, you can do the Gayle King wave, which is the wave to the control room that you've got some news to report, and we'll come straight to you. Natalie Brand for us at the White House.
King has a weave.
News. legal contributor, Jessica Levinson, who's also standing by to talk more about this. So I want to dig a little deeper, Jessica, into the dissent. And you just sort of heard what Natalie said there in quoting from Justice Sotomayor's dissent. I'm just curious if what you're seeing in just that sentence that she quoted to me, which is that certain justices of the Supreme Court recognizing that we live in a very politically charged time that is perhaps different than times previous, and that calls for a more, I don't want to use the word thoughtful, but a different approach to how these justices think about the letter of the law. Understanding, of course, that there are some of those justices who sit on the bench who are strict, and that when they look at the Constitution, they interpret it exactly the way it's written, and there are others who feel differently.
Vlad, I love this question because in my mind, and obviously it's a very lengthy dissent and I'm just trying to get into it, but this is a vintage Sonia Sotomayor dissent where she's saying, look at what is going to happen on the ground now. And I would say right off the bat, the conservative justices and others, I think, would say the practical impacts that she's concerned about may not happen. But I will say, as somebody who teaches her opinions, this is very much consistent with the way she writes, which is look at what will happen to individuals on the ground today. And she spends, as far as I can see, the beginning of her dissent really focused on this question of birthright citizenship. I'm sure you've talked to Jan and Rebecca about the fact that this case really wasn't about birthright citizenship at all. In fact, it was about the scope of relief that federal judges can provide when somebody walks into the courtroom and says, there's a problem with this executive order. And I don't think that there is a majority of the court not near it to say that this executive order about birthright citizenship would be constitutional. But you do see, I think, this fascinating divide where Justice Sotomayor is spending a lot of time talking about what happens to people who are pregnant right now. Will we have stateless children? And this is really what she has done in other areas. Think about affirmative action, think about abortion, think about immigration.
Why did they come here to give birth?
Different opinions.
And now we got to take care of them because
the implications of what would happen under the law.
Like, no.
If we give federal judges the power to
No,
do
can't
this.
do
It's a
that.
very different reading of the consequences we're worried about. It's a very different reading, in some ways, I think, of the power of federal judges.
Jessica, let me ask you about some of these other cases that we're waiting for, including the one that has to do with children's books. And it's so interesting, and people can be mad at me, but 3 years ago, before I had a baby, I probably wouldn't have thought much about this. It wouldn't have affected my life much. But I am curious as to the merits of this case, how it started, and how you feel the justices might rule on this one.
So this is a case involving whether or not parents have, under the First Amendment, the Free Exercise Clause, a right to essentially have notice and opt out before their children are read certain books. In this case, about LGBTQ families, I believe, were the main books that we're talking about here. And Vlad, to your point, I heard Supreme Court justices saying the same thing, which is life experience matters. I heard Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who has a number of school-age children, saying something like, you know what, these are real important questions. And I think it matters. And this is true in another case, dealing with another case that, as far as I know, we're still waiting on, dealing with whether or not age restrictions in Texas in order to get onto websites that have adult content are permissible. But when it comes to this question that you asked me about, and it comes to the parents who are saying we need notice, we need an opt-out before our children are read certain educational materials, I think the court is going to rule with the parents. I think the court felt that there should be some sort of opt-out for them. And the question, of course, is how they craft that opinion so that it does not allow parents to say, we don't want our children to have basic education in US history, in math, in science, but it does allow parents with genuinely held religious beliefs to say, we don't want our children to hear this type of educational material. That would be difficult for them to craft that.
Yeah,
opinion.
they could we didn't
I
have
do
that
think that's sort of
problem back
interesting
in
that
the
you say that,
days.
Jen, because my first
That's
thought
something
went
that's
to,
new
okay, well
now
then
that these
if
crazies
the court
started.
then rules that parents can
This is the
have
Biden
the
craziness.
opportunity to opt
The
out
Biden
of that
disease.
story time, for example, if it has material that they don't feel comfortable with for religious reasons, what's the line when you say, hey,
Not
let's
only
talk
religious, but
about
moral
enslaved people
reason.
in this country and what
Like,
that meant
I don't
and
want
what that
no
has
fucking
meant
drag
for this
queen
country.
in front
What
of
about
me
Jim
talking
Crow?
about
All the
like
things that you're starting to
crazy
sort of hear
shit
now
from a
that
book.
people
Are you
kind of
kidding
don't
me?
want to talk about, that they don't want to teach in
Like
schools.
that drag
What
queen
would be that line
storytime
for
hour
parents to say, you
shit?
know what, I don't want my kid to hear about what it was like to be enslaved in this country, because they're too young to understand that, and where the line would be drawn in that way.
Well, Vlad, I hate to give you this answer, but we're going to know in 7, 10, 17 minutes. I don't know, but we will see how, if I'm right in the prediction. And I don't know if Jan can still hear, but I think that we both listened to oral arguments and believed that the court was likely to side with the parents. It's important to know in this case, the school previously
have to
did
side with the
have an
parents.
opt-out
Hello?
provision for the parents. They took that away.
You can't
And
force
I
these
think what the
kids
court
to
was
be
saying here
pushed
is
to that subject.
allow that
That's not
opt-out. It's
allowed.
not too much of an administrative burden. To
That's
your point,
overstepping
though,
their boundaries.
I think this is going to be the hard part for the court, right?
I think it should be
Saying that
easy.
You have to allow
not
parents
hard.
this opt-out, but
That's
you can't
easy.
allow parents to say, don't teach evolution.
Don't teach fucking crazy shit. Like, what the fuck? What's wrong with America, man? Like, are you kidding me? What the fuck is wrong with America? You see, CBS gets me mad. I think if I check my pressure, I know it's high now. Because CBS always does that to me. It's just like common sense. Like, yes, leave it up to the parents. Leave it up. Like, they have to deal with that damn kid like their whole life. The schools don't. It's all temporarily. School is temporarily. You know, you serve pretty much like a full 13 years of your life and going through high school, and then if you go to college, that's even more added time. So like that's just a big influence, a big like a mind fuck when you go to these universities, because they always try to push their agenda, and even now they're trying to do it to elementary school kids, preschool kids. They're trying to get the little story time hour, drag story time hour is crazy. And I don't understand why they need to push this on the little ones. It's so sickening. It's sickening. It's. I hope Trump. I hope reason and common sense enters these individuals' minds and heads, but we'll see, because the Democrats are very crazy. They're crazy. Democrats are crazy. I know they are. I can feel it. They're crazy. Um, let's check a look at another story. And you guys be the judge.
You're wondering why the Trump administration is so anxious to deport violent illegal aliens so quickly. You should just look at this one federal district judge in Massachusetts named Brian Murphy. Monday, the Supreme Court issued a ruling which basically stayed a preliminary injunction that Murphy had issued. And that injunction had kept the Trump folks from deporting migrants to countries that they didn't come from without sufficient time for an appeal. That should have been a green light for the Trump people to deport these 8 migrants who happen to be held on a naval base in Djibouti, even though only 7 of the 8 actually come from other countries besides South Sudan. But what happened is after the ruling, Murphy basically stuck up his middle finger at the Supreme Court and said, nope, still can't deport him. He said that he issued another ruling, a separate ruling that the Supreme Court didn't address. And that was just, clearly a legalistic stalling tactic. It's symbolic of the way the left tries to get its way through the courts if it can't get its way democratically. In the case of the migrants, by the way, you remember that Trump ran on a promise to deport violent illegal immigrants, and he won the election decisively. And it's bizarre that the left is trying to keep these people in the country, but they are, and they're doing it by trying to use the courts. And by the way, in this case, the 8 men who are being held in Djibouti, these are people who are convicted of murder, sexually assaulting minors, robbery, arson, a whole list of other crimes. And yeah, it's true that South Sudan is unstable, but that's the only country that was willing to take these people. And the only alternative is to keep them here and place Americans at risk. But voters don't like lawfare. They voted for Trump despite the criminal and civil charges filed against them. And the left really, if it cares about democracy, it really shouldn't be using the courts to try to stop Trump's agenda, unless it's absolutely clearly unconstitutional. But that's not their actual motivation in most cases.
That's wild. Like, a judge could impede a president from doing what he was voted to do. That's only in America. Only in America you get that type of story. It's just crazy. So let's go to Jason A. He came out with a video. I want to check it out. Should I? Man, I think I should change the background for this one. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a little change to the background for this next story. There we go. We brought back. Paul's back. Paul's back. Look, I got some medicine for you, Paul. I told you, man. You're back, bro. That's 2 nights in a row. You can't say I didn't fucking care. I don't care about you. I do. It's just when crazy stories like this come up, I think you should be involved in it. So let's just go to the story so you can see what I'm talking about.
Could explain a lot of things going on these days. Scientists, by the way, did try to intercept radio signals from this mystery object, but didn't hear anything.
I was going to say we should run, but where are we going?
Nowhere.
We're kind of stuck here.
This isn't just anyone saying this. Astronomers at Harvard University are suggesting a mysterious object that floated through our solar system last year may have been an alien probe. Hear me out. The object, called the Oumuamua, which in Hawaiian means a messenger that reaches out from the distant past.
A space object that has eluded scientists since it
looks like a flying
in 2017
I'm just
is now
saying.
back in the limelight for its disputed origins.
A big giant turd.
Called Oumuamua, the object has been pitched as many things.
A new government report is raising eyebrows across the country, especially among anyone interested in extraterrestrials. Our Alexandra Limon has the story.
Physicist and Harvard professor Avi Loeb says there's a possibility humans aren't the only civilization in the universe.
Whether we live in such a
I said
reality
that.
or not is
Oh
not
my
a
God.
philosophical question. We just
Man, I've
have
been
to
seeing
look
this
out.
forever.
Loeb teamed up with the
Y'all
Pentagon
motherfuckers
office
been
that
watching me?
investigates unidentified aerial phenomenon, and they released this draft report
Y'all
that
been watching
indicates
my
it
show.
is
That's what
possible
y'all
that
doing.
alien ships have already visited our solar system.
Specifically, Loeb thinks the first interstellar object spotted passing through our solar system in 2017 that was given the name Oumuamua could be an extraterrestrial mothership. Loeb says Oumuamua didn't have the characteristics you'd find in meteors or other known objects.
We consider a possibility where an object as big as Oumuamua, which was football field size, is a mothership.
He says the mothership could have released smaller ships or probes to study our solar system after spending a long time to get here.
With chemical rockets,
How did they come
it
to
takes
that
less than a
conclusion?
billion years to traverse the entire Milky Way
This is like-
galaxy.
Loeb
This
says
reminds
if
me of a movie,
Oumuamua
which
was
is
a ship,
like-
there likely wasn't life on it.
Here is NASA's manager for its
Where's
Center
Will
for
Smith
Near Earth
when you meet him?
Object Studies. Take a listen.
This object is simply
Is this
a
Independence
piece of
Day?
another solar
'Cause
system
Independence Day is coming
that
up.
was
Are we
expelled
gonna have
and
a
it has been traveling
Independence
through
Day for
interstellar
real?
space
Where's
for
Will Smith?
hundreds of millions of years, billions of years. We don't know.
NASA says this object will only be here for a limited time. Again, it's traveling at 40,000 miles per hour. In
Yeah,
case
so
you
how
were
come it is
wondering,
in
the
our
name
neighborhood if it was a
Oumuamua is Hawaiian. It means a messenger from afar arriving first.
We detect some fast-moving thing in the solar system with hyperbolic
Yeah, but
speeds headed towards
how
Earth,
would
and
you
then it
know if
rapidly
they
begins to
saw
slow
us or
down.
not?
Oumuamua is the first
That's
visitor
just
from
an
interstellar space that
assumption.
we have ever confirmed moved through our solar system. So, because its orbit,
But
its trajectory around the sun was not, quote, following
was it
Newton's laws,
scouting us? No.
that meant something was affecting
I
its
don't know.
trajectory.
I don't think so.
And some hypothesized maybe it's an intelligent craft. If there's not actual aliens on it, maybe they're active navigational tools on it.
No, this is your assumption.
This is
That's
the
an
very
assumption.
first
That's
object
not.
that
You don't
was
know that.
discovered in the solar system
You're assuming.
that originated from outer space.
I can't go by
Scientists say
assumption.
tumbling through our solar system right now is this strange cigar-shaped object
It
called
looks like a flying turd.
Which in Hawaiian means a visitor from far away.
Flying turd, what it
coming
means
here for
is
the first
shit.
time.
Harvard University professor Avi Loeb says the object was discovered last year. He says it's not a comet or an asteroid, and why there's no scientific proof, it could be something from another life form.
Could be a space debris from an advanced technological equipment that is either defunct or operational. We don't know. Maybe it's an reconnaissance mission coming to the inner part of the solar system to look around.
Like an alien ship?
Our suggestion is that it may be a light sail. A light sail is a sail
A
pushed
light
by
sail? I thought you
light.
said a lifesaver.
Just like
I was like,
a
lifesaver.
sailboat is being pushed by the wind.
Begs the question, do you think we are alone?
No, I don't think we're alone. I think there's a good
We've
chance
never
there's
been
something out there
alone.
for sure.
I think we're alone. You just never know.
Professor
Where's
Loeb says the
grandma's gonna
object is
think,
now
"You
moving
are
out of our
alone.
solar
I'm
system. It will
alone.
take
That's why I
thousands of
think I'm
years to
alone."
do so. However, he also says it's too late for scientists to find that object again in space with the technology we have today.
With conventional rockets, we cannot catch up with it. However, if we develop better technology for propulsion, we could potentially in the future chase it down and reach it. That we are not the most.
Then what are you gonna do? You gonna say hi to it when you pass by it? Like,
Renowned
doesn't
Harvard
make any
astronomer
sense.
Avi Loeb teaming up with the new head of the Pentagon's UFO office, dubbed the
'Cause you gotta be
All-Domain
alert ahead
Anomaly
of
Resolution
time in order
Office.
to
Together, they
launch
say that
a
interstellar
rocket to
objects
get
detected
to
in
it.
space
Doesn't
could
make
be
sense.
signs of extraterrestrial life, and that current sky mapping
You
technology,
gotta
like
know
the
like
James
way
Webb
in
Space
advance
Telescope,
when
could
it's
miss
coming.
such objects.
It could have been a mother ship that released some probes in the habitable region around the sun. If we have a visitor to our backyard, we should observe it at first.
Professor Loeb
Yo,
now
you
leading
ready
the
to get
charge to
probed?
build better arrays of sensors to capture anomalies, but
They're-
saying for
they're
now
here.
everything is hypothetical. And his paper is
Are they
really
here
meant to
to
remind
recover
UFO
the
hunters
Democrats?
not to forget the laws of
They need to
physics.
go back to their
Not
home.
just the reports from military personnel are intriguing
There you
and
go.
motivate my work right now. I want my instruments to tell me what is really happening.
Meanwhile, more videos surfacing showing odd objects have been leaked to documentary UFO filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who recently released pictures of an orb shape over Mosul, and these images showing a cylinder flying over a rock. The Pentagon not commenting on the recent videos, but confirming prior videos released by Corbell had been filmed by service members. As for what they are, definitive explanations remain out of reach.
We observed it for about 6 weeks, very strenuously last year. So we collected a whole lot of data. And as has been pointed out by many astronomers, it generated what we call a non-gravitational velocity signature. That is to say, as it swung through the inner solar system and on its way out, it moved in a way that wasn't just explainable by its gravitational signature from the sun. What does that actually mean to everybody? It means that the object could have been outgassing like a comet. So, you know, if you've got a balloon and you open up the end of it, it sails off very, very quickly because of this pressure from the gas. Most comets do that type of thing as they move through the inner solar system. The snag was we couldn't see any outgassing from this object, and that has led to all sorts of speculation, like it was a big solar sail from an artificial intelligence.
But what exactly is it?
I heard that it is a probe that we discovered in outer space, and a couple of scientists from Harvard believe it may be from
You guys
aliens.
are taking in the blue pill.
Very different from objects that we
All
have
these
found
blue
in
pills.
the solar system. Chair of the Harvard University Astronomy
Y'all
Department,
stuck
Avi
in
Loeb,
this-
claims on the move through our solar
Oh,
system,
Lord.
Oumuamua didn't act like an asteroid or a comet. It did pick up speed. There seemed to be an extra force that is pushing it. Loeb asserts in a journal article about to be published that Oumuamua may be a fully operational probe sent intentionally by an alien civilization.
It alerts people to an interesting possibility.
Could be. I think there's probably something out there.
I think it's absolutely true. We're being invaded.
With certainty, it's not
We've
from
been
our
invaded
solar
'cause we're
system,
here.
but it is from the Milky Way galaxy.
This object, very likely and very excitingly, came from a totally different solar system.
American Museum
Humans
of
are not
Natural
from this
History
planet.
astrophysicist Jackie
We were
Faraday
put
says
here.
discovery of the alien rock back in October of 2017 caused the entire astronomical community to lose their minds a little bit.
We just kept watching it.
And confirms it was speeding up.
We know this kind of thing happens with comets.
As comets approach the sun, they start to burn up. It's called outgassing. It causes the comet to speed up and is visible to the human eye. But with Oumuamua, there was no visible evidence of outgassing.
That's the thing that makes us scratch our heads and go, but that doesn't mean you immediately decide it's an alien spacecraft.
What is this?
I think it's a comet that came from a different solar system. And I think that's amazing.
And there is strong evidence to suggest that the object came from outside our planetary system. When it was first spotted, many researchers, including Harvard University's Avi Loeb, posited that the object was an alien spaceship. Many others suggested that it was an asteroid or a comet. New findings published in the American Geophysical Union Journal now suggest a new theory, that the object is a piece of another planet, that too from a different solar system. Stephen Desch, an astrophysicist at Arizona State University, in a press release, said that they have resolved the mystery of Oumuamua, calling it a chunk of an exopluto, essentially a Pluto-like planet in a different solar system. They added that this piece of the planet must have entered our solar system in 1995, which we likely missed. Over time, it lost 95% of its mass and became its current size. The existence of Oumuamua was confirmed in 2017, but it was already spacing away from Earth at really high speeds. Owing to this, scientists only had a little to study the object. Now, Oumuamua is too far away and too dim to be observed for further study.
Interesting, huh? Freaking aliens are here. They're gonna come for us. Just be careful. Look, oh shit, Paul. Fuck. You scared me, dude. Damn, man. Don't creep on me like that. We had a story about you. See, I knew, motherfucker. You came again, right? You were the probe that they fucking sent. I know it was you. I know it was him. Yeah, he comes to smoke my shit. I'm like, all right, give him some, you know. He's cool, but that's already fucking 2 days in a row. That's fucking 2 days in a row. You better chip in and fucking buy some of your fucking own medicine, motherfucker. This is expensive. It's not cheap. I need to start a weed fund. It's like I need a startup a foundation to donate for medicine. Smokable medicine. But that's how I'm gonna wrap up the show today, because I got like 12 minutes. I'll wrap it up. So I'm only gonna do 2 hours. I did an earlier show today. It was really good, and yesterday I did a really good show about the alligator, the alligator Alcatraz. It makes me laugh because it's crazy, right? Because these people now are protesting. They're like, no to the alligators, no. Let me see if I can find a story real quick. I thought I had one up, but I have to look. But yeah, they're out there bitching and fussing about the alligators, the alligator Alcatraz, which and it's true. It is in the middle of the Everglades. It is surrounded by alligators and snakes and all types of snakes, even pythons, huge pythons, lots of scorpions, lots of crazy critters. You know what I mean? It's wild down there. It's very interesting, you know, because just the time that we're in, you know, and we got to get rid of these, and not get rid of, but we got to move and process these individuals that are going to be deported. So Florida has come up with the Alcatraz. Let me see if I can bring up the feed from yesterday. I have to go back. See if it's on here. I watch a lot of YouTube. Holy smokes! It's like, Rick, yeah, you watch, yeah, because I don't use no cable television or any of that stuff. I watch YouTube. I pay for the subscription, so have the premium, and that way I don't get bombarded by commercials. I hate commercials. I really do. I don't like the commercials. But see, I did that show. I did it yesterday. I did it yesterday morning. I'm just looking at my history to see if I can find it. I don't want to. I need to get another keyboard. Because the one I have is okay, but I need a better wireless keyboard. So that's like one of the next things I gotta invest. I'm trying to see. I'm like, man, I watch a lot. I truly do watch a lot. Here it is. I think this is it. That's the backlash. That's the helicopter. Okay. How long is this one? It doesn't say. All right, I can still open it. Let's take a look. This was from yesterday's show, but I can show it again. This show. We're talking about, since we're talking about the alligators. Here we go. Give me 1 second, and I'll have it all set up for us. All right. So, all right, Paul, I'm going to have to let you go, dude, because we got to continue with the show. It was nice having you over here. You had a moment with us. Let's say bye to Paul. Bye, Paul. Everyone that are rewatching, say bye to Paul. He's real cool. He's so cool. Oh, my goodness. That high five always gets me. All right, Paul. See you later, Gator. Talking about gators, that's the next story, Paul. Just watch from a distance. Peace, dude. So, Paul is gone. He's okay, but he's going to be watching. And let's go to the story here.
And it's in Florida. The attention is thanks to its very unique security system.
This 30 square mile area is completely surrounded by the Everglades. Presents a efficient, low-cost opportunity to build a temporary detention facility because you don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. People get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide.
It's called Alligator Alcatraz, and it's expected to be operational by next month. So joining me now is the man who came up with this idea. It's Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being with us here today. I think before I get into the specifics and details, which I have a lot of curiosities about alligator Alcatraz. How did this happen? Where did the inspiration come from to convert this spot in the Everglades?
Sure. Well, under Governor DeSantis' leadership, Florida's become pretty good at responding to states of emergency. And that's really what the illegal immigration crisis is. Just last week, we pulled MS-13 members off the streets in Orlando. The week before, it was criminal alien human traffickers and sex predators. We stand by President Trump, and we're going to do everything we can to support that administration in their efforts. Thank God they're protecting American families. But our success in arrests is filling up the jails quickly, so we need additional detention space. And this location is ideal because of its surrounding area. It's a low-cost, already developed 30-square-mile area surrounded by the Everglades. So Alligator Alcatraz has a nice ring to it, and we're going to get it up and running as soon as possible.
All right. The number of migrant detentions, I believe, at the start of this administration was something like 39,000. It's currently up to 56,000. There's a stated goal to arrest roughly 3,000 illegal immigrants a day. So you're responding to a need, to a demand for more detention centers, more space. Let's talk about Alligator Alcatraz. Right. How much Everglades surrounds this would-be prison? Like, you're talking about minimal security and natural barriers and elements. Help me understand, like, how far to civilization?
Yeah, it's miles and miles once you get down there. This is right smack dab in the middle. It was built, back in the 60s and 70s with the idea to be a large airport. There's an 11,000-foot runway, which will enable large planes to come in and out that can carry hundreds and hundreds of people as we are working to detain and deport them out of this country. But there'll be some light infrastructure. We'll have a perimeter, but at the end of the day, Mother Nature presents the ultimate perimeter, and it's why this is the great spot for a detention facility.
Okay, miles and miles of swamp and alligators and pythons and other natural barriers. What does that mean for security should you build it? Do you need less in the form of guards? Do you need a less secure, less robust perimeter?
You obviously need a less robust perimeter given the natural surroundings. There will certainly be additional. We're going to have staffed guards. The governor has called in the National Guard, the Florida National Guard, to help along with other staff will support. We're also looking at other locations, at least a couple other throughout the state. We want to get 5,000 beds up and running by next month so that we can properly support the Department of Homeland Security in their mission. And I got to tell you, Secretary Noem had a great idea looking at the tens or hundreds of millions that the Biden administration was spending to put immigrants up in fancy hotels. That funding is being redirected towards these facilities, towards the deportations, and we're going to get the job done.
Reminds me of something out of a movie. It might be a specific movie. I can't remember, but you fellows are welcome to escape if you'd like. If you can get past the guards, if you can get past the perimeter, you have to then get past everything that lies in your way in the form of nature. In this case, Alligator Alcatraz. All right, Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to support.
That is wild. That's wild. Wild story. But they're going to build it. And it's going to be a detention center. And that's where they're going to process a lot of the immigrants. And they have a runway. So they're going to go and fly them out. And they'll have daily flights, overnight flights, all types of flights every day. And it's a working runway. They have everything that they need there. So it's it's really good. You don't have to spend way so much money because you already have the land. You already have everything is already set up. The runway is in great condition. So the maintenance is not as high, and you can build from scratch. I don't think the temporary shelter type setting would be suitable, just because it's hurricane season, and if a hurricane goes through the Everglades, which it has before, it will destroy the hell out of that place. And where are these people going to be staying at? Like, if there's an emergency of that nature. That's my only pushback I have of it. because I know I've been through hurricanes in South Florida. I've been through many of them, and those temporary shelters is not going to be suitable for hurricanes. So I just hope they have a plan B and where they're going to put these individuals at if a storm does come threatening either from the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. So it's going to be a very unique hurricane season this year, and I'll be covering it also. But with that said, I'm wrapping up the show. It was a good show. I told you guys it was going to be 2 hours, and we have reached that mark. So everyone, continue having a good day, a good morning, good afternoon, a good night, and I'll catch everybody on the flip side. And yeah, I'll be back on possibly tomorrow, go over what happened overnight and see what happened with the Supreme Court and what were their rulings and so forth. That'll be for tomorrow's show. With that said, welcome to the weekend and enjoy. Peace.